Hello and welcome to the Game Football Podcast from The Times. They were the favourite team of many neutral fans, and now Paris Saint-Germain are officially the best team in Europe, beating Inter Milan 5-0 in the Champions League final in a stunning performance in Munich. On today's show, we'll discuss that win, what it says about modern football, look at some of the transfers on the horizon back home, discuss the deals which didn't work out last season, and dish out some more quirky end-of-season awards. I'm Tom Clark, and joining me today we have the senior sports writer and Sunday Times columnist Alison Rudd, the reporter and tactics analyst Hamza Khalik-Luna, and the former Ireland, Chelsea and Marseille striker Tony Cascarino. Guys, it's June the 2nd and we're still here. We are still podcasting about football. Will it ever end? I don't think it will. I think we'll just still keep going the whole time because there's loads to talk about.
And the people want it.
The people want it.
By the way, Tom,
yeah,
it's the end of the season. That's the most enthusiastic I've seen you.
Really?
Because that was great.
Thanks. Thanks, Tone. It's taken him all season to give me a compliment, and he's finally come.
Are you going for a new contract?
I think you're just feeling bad about Thursday's show with you and me and Chaz and Dave, you and Martin Samuel just chatting nonsense at either side and not doing as you're told, answering quiz questions. I think you're just feeling bad, so you're dishing out the compliments. Anyway, let's get into the football because there is loads and loads to talk about. Let's talk about that Champions League final. And Tony, in the Times this morning, you are writing, and we bumped into each other yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were on your way out, I was on my way in for the shift, and you went, Tom, that's going to change football. And sometimes you get a bit of analysis at the lifts on the way into the office, and you just think, wow, that's a punchy comment. Tell us a bit more.
Well, look, first and foremost, pressing has always happened. You know, I played in a team with Ireland that did it incredibly, from all over the pitch, and especially in the forward areas. We've seen Manchester United do it. We've seen many other clubs. Liverpool had Firmino, Salah, Mane. They pressed. But the pressing on Saturday night was way different, as in the intensity of it. I've never seen three forwards press in that manner. Dembele from even goal kicks, looking to pass it 5 yards to the centre half, who's probably thinking, I don't really want it. And then Dembele's literally doing sprints of 30 metres to get to it as quick as he can. Everyone followed. That was as high intensity I've ever seen. Kvaratskhelia, 4-0 up. 4-0 up, and he's literally, you're thinking, oh, well, maybe just close the game out. And he's tracking back and making tackles and giving away a throw-in. And I'm thinking, this is a new level. Doué, a 19-year-old, what is he, 19, Doué? He's doing the same thing. You know, his idol's Neymar. Neymar would never, ever have done what he did to DiMarco, as in pressing him or anybody around him. I just thought it was extraordinary. And that has set the benchmark now for pressing, because that's the highest level I've ever seen.
It's not just the level, though, because you make the point in your column that it's this level of player, right? It's
absolutely.
It's everyone's superstar, new superstars, everyone's new favourite players, as you say, Doué. We love him. Yeah. But it's that when you're this good and you're still doing it, there's no excuse for the rest of the top talent around Europe, right?
No, and that's the irony of everything, because they had players from Icardi to Neymar to Mbappe to Lionel Messi, Cavani, lots of great strikers at that football club, that they did play with 8 players. Because, there were periods with PSG when the 3 up front would just say, well, it's not my job. Or you felt it because they just let their player go. That was never the case.
Yeah.
And that was the different. The talent they've got are prepared to literally get their backside, cover every blade of grass on the football pitch. That I think, Inter were poor, but boy, the team that they come up against, the hunger and desire of talented lads was extraordinary.
Hamza, what do you make about Tony's idea there? Because also, I think another idea is that owners around Europe and managers and coaches will be looking at PSG. Football goes in trends all the time, doesn't it? And go, well, this is how we want to play. As I said in my intro, everyone's like, oh, we love watching PSG. What do you think about Tony's idea that this front line, as well as their attacking talent, it's their desire and intensity that might have set new standards?
Yeah, I agree. What I liked in particular was the way that the fullbacks would join them as well. So you'd see like Hakimi jump up really high, and he would coordinate his movements with the winger as well. So sometimes it'd be with Dembele, sometimes with Doué, and you would see that as the ball goes out to one side, the winger checks their shoulder to see where the space is behind them, and Hakimi would coordinate accordingly. So sometimes he would come inside to leave a pass out wide, so they could pass it to their wing back, but they couldn't pass it in field, because that's what they wanted to do most of all, to prevent Inter from actually playing into midfield and then forcing them out to the wide areas, and then having a wing back that's isolated, and then they didn't know what to do. They'd probably lose possession or try and force something. And that's why their strikers, Thuram and Lautaro Martinez, were uninvolved for the majority of the match. I think this is sort of this has been coming for a while. We have seen it for a while. There are a number of teams in England that do it really well. I mean, we've spoken about Bournemouth and Palace a lot on this podcast. Arsenal are fantastic at it, but the way that they jump from that zonal structure into a man-to-man, and that's where you get that's where that intensity comes from. When one player is assigned to an opponent specifically, and they're doing exactly what Tony said, they sprint at them, and they know that the next person along also has another player that's following them specifically, rather than just blocking out the space. That becomes a lot harder to deal with. But yeah, when you recruit, most smart clubs anyway are recruiting to this specification. They know the top speeds of a player. They know how fast they accelerate, how fast they decelerate, because that's also important. How well they cover space, how well they actually defend space as a unit. So you don't. When you can track all this stuff using the cameras, you can see where all the players are on the pitch and how they move as a body. As in, think of like how a flock of birds would make themselves more aerodynamic in the air, so they all cover space together. You can do the exact same thing and use the same models that you use to model that in football with the camera tracking, and you can see which players are very good at covering space and which players aren't as good at covering space. So when teams recruit footballers, they're looking at which ones are particularly good at covering space and pressing and doing all that sort of stuff.
Interesting. Flock of birds analogy there. Alison Rudge, he's got in first. Some of these kind of, beautiful visions of things.
But has anyone around this table seen before a forward, as Dembele did, take the stance of he's starting the 100 metres? Exactly. He's crouched. He looks like he's on the blocks. Yeah. He's got one arm down, one arm up. It looks like he's doing a Usain Bolt impersonation just at a goal kick. Yeah. And you think, as anyone, I have not seen that ever before. And if you weren't in such a glamorous side as PSG, you'd be laughed off the pitch. And I wonder if we will actually, if that's just going to be his thing and no one else will ever dare do it. But
so you think because he's got the skills, it's all right. But
he's got the skills and he's going to win the Champions League, so you can get away with something that is. But I don't know. Would presumably, if you are in a 100-metre race or a 50-metre race, you do have a stance, don't you? You have talking about your aerodynamics. You have an aerodynamic stance. You have a position that gives you the most spring to get as much speed as possible. So was Dembele's stance actually practical, or was it psychological? Was he just trying to psych out the rest of Inter by acting like...
I think it could be a bit of the latter.
It must have made Sommer think, oh my goodness, what's going to happen
they're
now?
literally charging at us.
Well, Sommer nearly got caught 2 or 3 times. It was like literally inches away from being, the block was on.
Yeah.
It makes you think about this, the psychological element in particular, how they kick off. I don't know if you guys notice.
Yeah, they kicked it straight out of touch.
Which they did against Arsenal. They just do that. That's their thing. So they kick the ball straight out so they can press you immediately. Again, that's a psychological thing. Yeah, we have possession from the first minute or the first half or the start of the second half, but we don't care. What we want to do immediately is put you under pressure so we can regain the ball while you're not ready. That is definitely psychological.
Yeah, interesting. Alison, on this idea that this was a huge seismic moment, I kind of slightly agree, but part of me is a little sad and worried by the scale of it. I mean, I quite liked 3-0 with a brilliant performance, but then when it got to 5, I was a little bit like, oh, this is a bit scary now, Inter. I feel a bit sorry for you. Would you agree with the guys that this felt... Because we don't get 5-0 scorelines in Champions League finals.
Never have, no.
They're often quite exciting, but they're then tight and exciting.
Yes.
Or they're incredibly dull. This kind of a scoreline, this kind of a match is incredibly rare. What did you make of it kind of in this kind of idea of what it means for football, not in a tactical sense like the guys have talked about?
Oh, well, I don't think it's ever good for football to have something that one-sided as the showpiece event of the season. But on the other hand, I think a lot of teams who were in the latter stages of the Champions League could have made that a more interesting and tense final. I think Inter Milan were exactly the wrong team in the wrong place for a team like PSG with all their attributes. And it was like watching a team age in front of you, and all the qualities like resilience and the backstories and the great denouements of the matches that got them there. It's like it had drained them completely, and they suddenly looked, instead of experienced, they just looked hobbling and old. And I just felt that gave every PSG player that sense of the plan we have doesn't need to change, of course, but what a lift to you as a team to know they can't. They at no point did they offer anything. It's really. Thuram, I think, was the only player that came out with any
set pieces
because the ball did stick. The ball did stick with him, and he did some intelligent layoffs and movement. Other than that, I don't think it says a huge amount about football per se in Europe. I think it just means that it was the wrong team. It was the wrong team for a team that presents what PSG give you.
I agree. But another thing that stood out for me, and this is many teams, international and club level teams, are guilty of this, and managers, of playing players that are not 100%. Martinez was never 100%. He wasn't 100% against Barcelona when he scored. But because he's so important to them and the goals he gets and just him being there, he was a non-event.
Yeah.
I was looking at him thinking, you're not fit.
Yeah. It was obviously a great story, Inter Milan beating Barcelona, and James Gearbrandt talked about it on a recent show as his moment of the season. But I was watching thinking, God, I wish this was Barcelona.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been a great game. Before we move on to another bigger, broader topic that Johnny Northcroft has written about, just who's your one favourite PSG player? Because we're going to do a lot of favourites on this show. We've got a lot of awards to be dished out.
I'll go straight out of the other guy. Hakimi.
Oh, Hakimi's mine. Yeah.
No, Tony went first.
But I would have genuinely said
you
that.
have it then. You go Hakimi.
No, I mean...
Stop being so nice to each other, for God's sake. Tony, why Hakimi?
Why? As Hamza said, I'm seeing him in ridiculous positions. I think he's the best right back in the world. I said this months ago. That he reminds me of the very best of Kyle Walker when he's attacking. He's just... his energy levels are extraordinary. Just seeing him in many positions, always getting back as well. He always gets back to his original starting position. And typical of the goal where he gets in. He's scored goals in previous rounds. So you're seeing a right back that's nearly doing everything in the game. Yeah. And he doesn't have... You know what he wants? You know when you sometimes look at players, and this was the theme of the PSG team. I couldn't remember one PSG team, even when it was 0-0 for a period, having a go at each other. No one seems to go, like you see so often in teams where players are waving their arms at another player. Yeah. Not one PSG player did it, and he never does it.
Really?
He never does it. You'll never see Hakimi go point anybody out in his team.
Interesting. Hamza, who would be your fave? Who's your coolest, as you often say? Who's cool?
Skelly is probably the coolest.
Yeah, he's the coolest, isn't he?
But at the end, Vitinha's the one that moves me.
Some player, isn't he?
He was at Wolves.
I know.
And you're watching this guy run the show in the Champions League. This guy was on the bench at Wolves. What the hell? But no, he's so smart. The way he wins the ball for such a small guy. He's so tenacious without the ball, and what he does in midfield allows the team to be so aggressive upfield in the way that they press. So he's obviously very aggressive in the way that he presses when he goes man-to-man, but he also picks up the loose balls. He can test the aerials as well. Sometimes he leaves them, so then Marquinhos can sweep up, but he always keeps the ball moving and shuffles it very nicely from side to side to open up the spaces, and that's where someone like Dembele can come into the game, right? Because he goes where he wants. Everyone else is sort of... Well, the way that they play is that they all occupy the important positions across the pitch to spread out their opponents, and then Dembele has license to roam. But Dembele can only receive the ball if someone behind him is moving it towards him in the first place, and that's where Vitinha comes in. That's where he's so good.
Alison, thought of a different one other than Hakimi in the 2 minutes I gave Hamza?
No. Well, let me just say on Hakimi, I think it's really hard to pull off that I'm not celebrating against my former club routine, and I think he did that. I would put that as the classic example of how to do it. He managed to look respectful. About that. I agree.
Get over yourself. It's Champions League final, mate.
It's not a good thing to do, but he still managed to look incredibly delighted.
Yeah.
And he has that advert, doesn't he, where he looks really cool.
I think we're missing Dembele, aren't we? As one of the, I mean, what a fantastic story. We're in the second half of the show. We're going to talk about some disappointments and people that have maybe been flops. You know, for so long he had this tag of, oh, he's not lived up to the hype, and now he's probably one of the best players in the world. Also, I love Nuno Mendes. He's absolutely crackers, isn't he? Absolutely bonkers. Not quite as technically good as Hakimi, but runs even faster and even harder. And speaking of these players, the reason for doing so is that the UEFA Technical Observer Group have selected their Champions League team of the season. Would you like to hear it?
Oh, go on then.
Yes, please, Tom. Donnarumma in goal. Hakimi, Marquinhos, Bastoni and Mendes in the back four. Then Vitinha and Declan Rice in a midfield two. It's amazing what 2 free kicks can do for you. And then a front four. They're playing 4-2-4, the UEFA Technical Group. Hamza, I'd be interested in your views on this. Yamal, Doué, Dembele, Rafinha. I mean, you'd watch it, wouldn't you?
No Salah off.
Excellent.
No Kvaratskhelia.
No Kvaratskhelia, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, got Lamine Yamal and Rafinha in instead. So there you go, a 4-2-4 from the UEFA Technical Observer Group. I'd definitely watch it, wouldn't you? Alison, there is another important point that I'd like to just mention with PSG's victory, and it was made by our colleague Johnny Northcroft, who's obviously writing the match report from the Sunday Times, and then emailed me yesterday when I was on the desk saying, Tom, I've woken up with a hangover. And I said, oh, were you out on the beers in Munich? Were you? He was like, no, it's a Paris Saint-Germain hangover. And he wrote a piece which you can read on the Times website, which is headlined, My PSG Hangover. Was it worth the fun given how they're funded? It is a shame that to accept the brilliance of players such as Doué and Vitinha, lovers of football have to stomach the state funding and skewed UEFA money as well. He's not wrong, is he?
No. And state funding is a problem because it's a bottomless pit, and it wields influence, and it makes a mockery of financial fair play, because how can you compare an oil-funded state with an individual who owns a club or a hedge fund who owns a club? They are drops in the ocean by comparison. But I would have gone further than Johnny and say it's almost like a dystopia when you've got a country the size of Qatar, with a population of 4.5 people, wielding so much influence in the world. And politically, they are, in my view, incredibly dodgy. I mean, their treatment of women, their general human rights, their treatment of migrant workers. This is all the problems we had when the World Cup was held in Qatar, but it doesn't matter. They've got the money and they'll build the stadiums, and it doesn't matter how many workers die in the building of them. It is astonishing. And now it's almost sports washing on a different level, that you end up, as we just have been, gushing about the beauty of PSG and how they finally clicked, the Qataris, that you don't have to just, and let's not forget, this is a team that has had money thrown at it, but you don't just need to throw money at it and buy the sexiest players in the world. You have to have an amazing coach. And I think Luis Enrique is an amazing coach. Yeah. And he's applied discipline, and they've all bought into it. And that's what the things you outlined, Tony, about why these great players still, while they might be technically gifted, don't just rely on that. They're prepared to put in the work. That's because they really want to please a marvellous coach in Luis Enrique. And it's taken them a long time, Qatar, to realise that's the route to greatness. It's not just buy in superstars and go the Galactico route. But it does leave a very sour taste. It's strange
because we end up liking it more. That's the strange thing I found about it. That's part of the reason, isn't it? It's almost, for neutrals, we kind of like that they've not got Mbappe anymore. So we end up, from a sport washing point of view, we like their team even more because of all these cool players that they've got, all these potentially not Galactico superstars. In a strange way, they've ended up stumbling on a team that we love even more.
No, but they were laughable in that they did. It's the nouveau riche who don't know how to spend their money, is what they were. Oh, you're the richest person in the country, but look at your bathroom. It's a joke. It's gold taps and gold toilet seats, and you wear fur coats to the toilet. I mean, that's what they were like.
Don't bring up Tony's furnishings. Like, no need for that.
But now they're doing something classy and stylish and brilliant, and so that makes the sports washing element run deeper. And so, yes. But, I was sat there thinking, well, I'm obviously going to support Inter because of I don't like Qatar. But Qatar sponsor Inter Milan as well. You can't escape it. They're everywhere.
No.
And it's like, wow, they're such a tiny country with so much wealth from their oil that they wield this influence and power and make a mockery of the very notion of financial fair play.
Yeah. They're the worst offenders. But I think in football in general, a lot of this advantages happen in different ways. I can remember when Bernard Tapie was accused at Marseille of being corrupt and doing many different things, which I would say, well, probably quite a bit of that is true. And his argument was, well, Monaco can play foreign players tax-free. No other club in the French League One can do that. Isn't that corrupt? Isn't that wrong? Isn't that an advantage?
That's the Lance Armstrong argument that, well, everyone's doing it. So.
Yeah. But there is, I mean, obviously this is way different. This is a way different level. We're talking with country money. That's something completely different. But it happens in many different levels of football. Or in sport in general. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
it's just who does it the worst.
Yeah, obviously lots of foreign investment from across the globe, as Johnny says in his kind of payoff to his piece. In the match report for the final, I said PSG have shown us the future, and I'd love that to be the case in terms of how the game is played. But with the hangover set in, I fear they also show us the future of how it will be funded too, by the richest, by the authorities, and by an increasingly skewed slicing of the pie. Can we keep the football but find another way to live, he asks. And I sense potentially not by the answers that you've given. Hamza, any views on some of the points the guys have made there?
To what you've just said, I think, Johnny, and you're right in that there isn't really, unless... So when you have this level of debt, this level of finance in football, there is no incentive at the FA or the national level for, let's say, a regulator or whatever to try and equalise across Europe, because that would just, let's say you've got all these wonderful teams in England. You go, okay, they're too financially powerful. We're getting to the stage where they're just battering all the other teams across Europe. And no, the FA would never say, okay, well, what we need to do is sort this out, because we can't have Red Star Belgrade like never winning again. We're going to make sure that we have less money and we share it out more evenly. Well, they just wouldn't do that because that's against their national interests. Likewise, what you need is instead is for a supranational body, i.e. UEFA or FIFA, to come in and say, you are spending too much money, this is distortive, this means that we can't get a good quality of football across Europe, across the world, beyond the top league or beyond the top 5 or 6 teams in certain leagues. We need to break this monopoly up, or this oligopoly up, and spread that out more evenly. But at the moment, there's no appetite for that, because you've got these competing interests. You have, for example, these nation states that don't find it sort of objectionable to just pump in money, and if they want to put a lot of money into football, sure, whatever. But they are competing against or with owners who generally want some sort of return. So you either have private equity, or in the case of Inter Milan, like distressed debt investors, who all want some sort of return. So you've got these people that are motivated by the profit incentive, and these people who aren't, and fundamentally they can't coexist with each other, because those who aren't will just run the others out of business. Yeah. So this is the shape of football for the foreseeable future, and it's unhealthy because, like I said, you've got all these wonderful teams across Europe who used to have amazing heritage in the European Cup, and you just don't see them very much anymore. And I mentioned Red Star Belgrade, but I think they won it twice, and they were a formidable, fearsome team, and now you only really see them in the group stage. There's so many other teams like that in the Portuguese league and in Eastern Europe, teams that used to be great that can't compete anymore because of the way that finance is concentrated, and the way that you have these nation states that are willing to just sort of choose certain clubs and areas that are popular in order to advance their own interests. But as in, that requires government or international coordination to stop that sort of thing.
So are you asking for more regulation, Hamza?
That would be my... that from FIFA and UEFA,
I feel like they're over-regulated in many ways within sport. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just look at football and I think, how can you equalise everything? That seems an impossible outcome.
What, that we've gone too far down, you can't get it back now?
Well... if you go back 50 years ago, they're still the biggest clubs in the world were still dominating, were Real Madrid and Liverpool were dominating in the 70s, and Man United, not in European history, but it's sort of been that way for feels like forever. I don't know how you equalise it.
One solution would be for managers such as Luis Enrique or Eddie Howe to say, I don't want to work for you. That'd be really easy. Because the only reason we're gushing about PSG is entirely down to Luis Enrique.
Yeah. But then he's got the opportunity to work with these players and achieve this. Is that any different to saying asking a player to do that? Is that any different than asking a player this summer to say, well, don't join Newcastle or don't join PSG? Should we expect the managers to have a higher...
Yes, I think we should, because I just think with players...
They can't all be Gareth Southgate. They're not all Gareth Southgate, though, are they?
No, they're young. The players are young, and their advisors advise them about money.
Yeah.
They don't advise them about morals. So I think as a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old making a move, you're attracted by... Of course, you're attracted by the salary, but you will be attracted by the coach. And if the coach isn't going to progress you, then you might go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Look, Robbie Keane joined Inter Milan at 19. And I remember saying to him, having a conversation, it's nothing against Robbie. I said, why did you choose Inter? And he said, you should ask that to my bank manager. Yeah. And that was the sort of idea many a time, is that the rewards are so high that how can you ignore it? And don't get me wrong, I played for a club. I've played for clubs that have offered way more, because we thrive, or sometimes your circumstances,
yeah.
And especially if you come from a background with having nothing, you're really going to go, because some players support their whole network of their family.
Yeah. It's something
they go, well,
before,
my mum and dad are living in Brazil, and they're really poor, and I'm going to fund them to have what they need, and I don't care about the rest of what people think.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, maybe
no.
Just on Alison's point, I think it's quite right to look at where a company or a football club gets its money from, but then footballers will, for example, have to consider, let's say their club is part owned by a private equity group. What is that private equity group investing in? Because more often than not, they'll be investing in something like defence. I think Borussia Dortmund, I apologise if I got this wrong, but there was a protest last season with Borussia Dortmund because they were investing in Rheinmetall, I think, which is a defence company in Germany. And there was outrage there. But then this question then should logically be applied to all clubs and where they get their money from. And then you return to the issue of regulation. Then you just say, well, it's quite easy then if a regulator comes in and says you can't have money from X, Y, and Z because these are areas that we aren't happy to invest in, the same way that pensions don't invest in certain companies, such as defence, for example. That makes it a lot easier. If you don't, and if you just invite private equity in and say, okay, we want you to invest in our football clubs because it's going to be a two-way relationship where the club gets better, but you also make money, then you have to accept that they're bedfellows essentially as well. So I think there are wider moral considerations as well.
At least the German fans were protesting. I mean, at least they're alert to it.
Yeah.
They can have a conversation.
Some Newcastle fans are protesting.
It's 0.001%, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know whether we've got answers to Johnny Northcroft's question.
Felt quite deep.
But yeah, absolutely. we went from talking about how much we love Kvaratskhelia into a very serious philosophical question. But that's what you get with the Game podcast. If you've got answers to the conundrum about whether we can love PSG and still dismiss the off-field issues, get in touch with me, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk. Just one final question, Tony, that I wanted to ask you about. Ian Hawkey writing in the Times today and on the Times website about watching this match with Marseille fans. Obviously, passionately dislike PSG, watching it with them and having a very difficult night. Obviously, Marseille, your former club, very proud of the fact that they were the only French team to have won the European Cup, no longer. But also,
is that asterisk still there?
Potentially. I think, but if you read some of the Times commenters, you definitely say that the asterisk is still there. But also then, following the brilliant win on the pitch, some very disturbing and upsetting scenes in Paris after the game. I just wanted to ask you what it was like to play in France and whether you were surprised by both Ian Hawkey's piece with Marseille fans and the kind of passionate hatred that they have for PSG, but also then these quite remarkable and bizarre and upsetting scenes in Paris after the team had won the game in the most extraordinary and wonderful way.
Well, France, I found, and really immediately when I got there, that politically, even within the dressing room, was quite extraordinary. I remember players would go to political meetings, and especially one in Nancy, a guy, he would go there regularly and speak about politics. And I used to think, wow, no one, fair play to him, because no one would do that in England. You'd have no player of England saying, well, I'm going to the Reform March or, but they openly did it. And I saw a massive divide there. There was a lot going on in France, and politically and socially, there's so much going on in France. And the Marseille PSG is pure hatred. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. They call it a derby. It's 600 kilometres apart.
It was interesting reading in Ian's piece the fans explaining that it's not just the teams. It's like North v South France. It's like the two opposite sides of the country. By the way, going against each other.
There are lots of Marseille fans who live in Paris.
Right.
Yeah, I've got a son who lives there, and he's a Marseille fan. But there is a huge amount of and it's a very sad outcome to which is, and the suburbs of France and Liverpool found this out in the Champions League. Villa fans found it out going to Paris this year. So did Newcastle fans. That there are thugs that are looking for fans, going after them. To get whatever they can out of them, threatening them, robbing them, and this is happening way too often. It's not just football fans. Who are coming along. These are organised groups. It's a tragic event because this has happened too regularly. But strangely enough, at the Olympics, nothing happened. But there was the biggest security ever in a city, I would imagine, ever been put on, because no one could do anything. People who wanted to watch events were clearly not being able to get close to the events. So it's a very sad outcome.
Yeah, very disappointing end to a magnificent display of football on the pitch. We will get back to the football in the second half of the show, and we are going to have a right good laugh, Alison. I can promise you. We've got some cracking topics to cover, some weird, quirky awards, but it's time for a quick break. Time for an incredibly easy quiz question. Tony, you said I sounded chippy at the start of the show. Wait for this. This is the easiest quiz question ever. Who am I talking about when I say a former footballer who played for Inter Milan, Liverpool, Manchester United, Middlesbrough and Wolves, and a couple of other clubs as well? Find out after the break. Welcome back to the Game Football Podcast from The Times. I'm Tom Clark, and I've got Tony Cascarino, Alison Rudd and Hamza Khalik Lunat with me. And they all, in unison, as soon as the break happened, shouted the answer, which was...
Paul Ince.
Paul Ince. You were supposed to all shout it in unison. That was, anyway, never mind. Anyway, big philosophical, tactical discussion in the first half of the show. Now, listeners, it's time for a bit of nonsense. And we start with a little recap of the Fantasy Football League. Alison, I made such a big darn play of this at the start of the season and kind of slightly forgot talking about it. But it's important to say there were 359 people who competed in the Game Podcast Fantasy Football League. Congratulations to Carl Weeks, who finished top of the league, Kevin Watling in second and Chris Batstone in third. Carl, get in touch with me for your prize. I've absolutely no idea what it'll be, but if you're listening, congratulations. Oh, yeah, mate. Oh, gosh, yeah, producer Neil, you can have a Game Podcast coaster. Carl, if you want
more than that, it's got to be more than that.
It's green.
He's 242nd in the world. This guy's amazing. Two.
What about two? There's a pack of four, actually. This is as far as the News UK budget stretched. There's a marker pen as well. Neil's there's a glass over there. Maybe get you a mug as well.
Got to bring him in, right?
Carl, congratulations. I think, Alison's got a lip balm on the table. What else can we throw in? But I think, Carl, basically the biggest compliment and award you can have is Hamza Khalik Lunat saying this guy's amazing. Hamza does not say that lightly, Carl. So congratulations.
He joins Oliver Glasner, Andoni Iraola, and
in your manager of the season.
No, just people I think are amazing. That's it.
There you go, Carl. I mean, you can't do any better than that. If you want a coaster, get in touch with me, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk. But maybe Hamza's praise is enough. Just a quick mention for other Times staffers. Willis Bennett from the Sports Stats finished 5th.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Thank God for Willis making that we do actually know a bit about football. And our pal Tom Allnut, 12th. 12th. Ooh. He's a sly one, Tom, isn't he?
He looks like he doesn't care.
Comes in with his quiff, talking about European football and stuff. He actually really, really loves fantasy football. Pete Rutzler as well, our colleague, 29th.
Pretty good.
And then, listeners, we hit Alison Rudd.
Really?
In 50th.
That sounds
Top
awful.
50. Top 50.
Awful.
You want to wait for awful? We've got awful at the end. 50th. Got to be happy with that. I remember you talking proudly about your tactic of no Manchester City players,
no Newcastle players,
which is for
no Man
those
United
reasons
players.
we talked about in the start of the show, but actually served you very well.
Well, it did. I was top after first week.
You were top. Hamza, do you know where you finished?
I've got the sheet up now, so I can see you.
108th.
I stopped caring actually. So,
Yeah, is that your excuse for the fact that I
So you
finished?
threw in the towel,
I
Hans,
finished
look.
97th, so
There's
ahead
one-
of you.
There's one
Just-
league I care about, Tony. It's my school league. I've never won it. I'm
Oh,
quite
mate.
good usually. I've just not won that one. So as soon as I realised I couldn't win that, I sort of packed it. If you look at my team value, 100 million.5, you could tell I didn't give a crap.
Oh,
But as in, if
I
you
think
care,
he's getting
like,
the excuses
good-
in,
good
Tony,
for you.
because I beat Hamza. I just want that on the
So
record.
are you revealing?
I was
the
97th.
The bottom, who was last, or was we
It's a
doing that at the
wonderful
end?
question, Tony, because out of 359 people, Gregor Robertson, 353rd. No wonder he's decided to go on holiday for this segment of the show. The former footballer who knows absolutely nothing about football. Anyway, a good laugh, a right good laugh, talking about our fancy football, and congratulations again to Carl
It's a very
Weeks.
good tactic by Alisson, by the way.
What, sacking off Man City players in the one season that they're
this is
completely
gonna
crap?
No, this is really daft, what I'm going to say, right? If you want to win the lottery and you want to win it on your own, don't select birthdays.
What?
I'm telling you.
If you want to win, start that again.
So if you want to win a lottery...
I said we were going to have some fun in this second half of the
It's
show.
fun.
I didn't think this was going to... What?
Right.
If you want to win the lottery...
If you want to win a lottery, but you want to win it on your own and not share it, don't select birthdays. Because so many people select birthdays in their lottery numbers.
But everyone's got different birthdays, so they're all different numbers.
Yes, but you're ignoring birthdays, which is
50,
one to
whatever
one.
it goes up to.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, the combination for the seconds.
You're not going to get
12,
two
yeah.
people win it
1 to
if
12,
there's.
I'm glad you two were here to explain that. I had absolutely no idea what you were going on.
If there's lots of birthday numbers from 1 to 31,
Yeah.
if loads of them are the numbers, the 6 balls come in,
Yeah.
it's going to be definitely shared by a few people.
Right, there you go, listeners. Who'd have thought you'd get tips from Tony Cascarino on how to win the lottery on
how
this
to
show.
win it, being greedy.
No,
how
how to win the lottery. Anyway, speaking of more awards. Where was I? God, you completely bamboozled me with that, Tone. Alison, we've been going through recent shows, people's end of season awards.
Yes.
And as a stalwart of the Game podcast, you've not actually dished yours out for the following categories: Manager of the Season, Breakthrough Star of the Season, and your Moment of the Season. £5 to your chosen charity if all three of them are not Liverpool.
Okay. Well,
Forget about the kids. Just choose them.
no. Well, manager of the season, it is on a serious level. It is Arnie Slot.
Yeah,
but
the bloke you didn't like until about December. But anyway,
I will always say is actually Thomas Frank. So
fine.
And anyone who's listened to this show before will know why.
Yes.
And my breakthrough player has to be Kirkes at Bournemouth. He's only 21,
Yeah.
so you kind of think,
Getting ready
my
for him to
goodness.
join Liverpool, listeners.
Oh
so
my goodness.
technically, anyway.
What more? How this guy's going to improve so
Yeah.
much, and he's already
At Liverpool, but anyway, yeah.
amazing.
Played every game.
And he was a joy to watch as well. And I liked his fearlessness,
Yes.
especially against the big teams. So Bournemouth clocked up some results they'd never had before. They were beating the bigger teams and doing it and they did it via fearlessness, and he was at the heart of that. So very impressed with him. And he's only 21. It's amazing. And my moments of the season, is that what you asked for?
Yeah, moment of the
Okay,
season.
well, there's the recency bias comes into this because I was at Anfield for the final game of the season, and the double parade, the double honour, what's it called?
God.
Yeah.
Guard of honour, double guard of honour. I was thinking how they're going to do that, and they did it seamlessly, and I thought that was a nice touch. But better than that was, as the Liverpool players warmed up, so they'd put the bibs on and they'd run along the touchline, they stopped and shook hands with Oliver Glasner to say, well done on the FA Cup. And I just thought that was such a beautiful touch. And also, you know, the FA Cup was one of the moments of the season, so it was nice to be reminded of the two lovely things that happened, which was Liverpool winning the league and Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup. And just to prove that it's not all about recency bias, the other moment of the season, which I think was very significant, was Arnie Slot hauling off Kwanzaa at half-time in his first game, and you think, that's when you thought, actually, this isn't going to be a David Moyes
In his
repeat.
first game back
This
when
is
you were
gonna
slagging
be-
him off. But anyway.
This is going to be somebody who actually has managed to imprint authority from the word go and doesn't really care what
Yeah.
anyone thinks, because
Yeah.
behind the scenes he must have found some trust, and of course that was proven to be true.
So just
the
to
very
be clear,
beginning of the season and the very end of the season,
just to be clear,
few
moments of the season, Liverpool, manager of the season, Liverpool, and breakthrough star of the season, player who's almost certainly joining Liverpool.
Well, I can't help that, can I?
I mean, you could have, but anyway, it's fine. I only gave you about 36 hours of prep. But anyway, transfers. It's the summer. It's June. It's Tony Cascarino. Transfers are starting to fly in. Mateus Cunha joining Manchester United, confirmed on the Times website from Charlotte Dunker. Paul Joyce reporting that Kelleher is going to leave Liverpool. Gary Jacob also reporting interest in Fikayo Tomori as well. So I thought, what transfers would we like to see happen? I've got a couple to kick us off. Tony?
Well,
What funny ones?
Kirkus to Liverpool, Alison. Yeah, shock. Can be funny ones. It can be serious ones.
Funny one?
I would like Marcus Rashford to join Arsenal.
Yeah. Come on, a bit of reason.
Very quiet.
Silence in the room. Partly because I think it would be really interesting. I think it would also wind Arsenal fans up no end because they're like, he's not a proper striker. As per anyone who listened to Thursday's show with Martin Samuel would know. And I also think he might be quite good, actually.
It's good that you've got James and myself who said Arsenal don't need a striker separate from Martin.
Yeah, exactly.
Grab us by the lapels.
Yeah, sign a striker. I would like, and I don't think this is going to happen, but I'd like Liam Delap to turn down Chelsea and sign for anyone other than Chelsea, but it looks like he's going to. Ben Mee is available on a free transfer.
Yeah.
Surely has to go back to Everton, reunited with James Tarkowski under David Moyes. That is what we want to see.
That's a nice one.
Anyone else got some transfers that they'd like to see happen? Serious or slightly jovial?
Jovial, Yao Felix to join Burnley.
Right, nice. Any particular reason why, or do you think that's his
he
level?
Can't get goals anywhere, and it don't really matter if he goes because Burnley are all about defending and stopping goals going in.
So he can stand looking pretty on the halfway line.
Well, he's been on loan everywhere, and I just when you sort of hear sometimes say, well, could he manage Burnley or could he manage these?
Could he do it on the Tuesday night?
Yeah,
in
Tuesday
Burnley?
night. Well, could he go to Burnley and
João
get goals?
Felix at Burnley, I'd love to see that. That's a good one.
Rasmus Højlund to Sunderland and to get 30 goals and keep them up. That would be funny.
That would be excellent. That would be excellent.
On Burnley, I think James Trafford, I already think he's the best English goalkeeper around. I think he's ahead of Pickford and Dean Henderson, in my view. I think he could make it the jump up to a top Premier League team immediately. I know last season he struggled, but...
Anyone you could think of, a team that I can't think... I'm trying to think of... It's been linked with Newcastle and some others, but...
Tom, can I just ask a question?
Yeah. Is it about the lottery?
You just said, I know last season he struggled.
Oh, the season before, so in the league, in the Premier League, sorry.
The last time he was in the Premier League.
Premier League, yeah, okay.
The season that we've just had, that has literally just finished, he was fantastic in the Championship. No. The season before, he struggled a bit, and Burnley brought in Muric. And
But if you don't want all the promoted teams to go straight back down, you've got to let them keep the reason they got up in the first place.
Maybe that's what we should be doing. You know, you're talking about the free promoted clubs. We should petition for them all to get one superstar signing that's not paid for by us.
Yeah. How do we keep the bottom of the teams that got promoted up?
Maybe it can be a new version of sport washing. Qatar can pay for them all to have one superstar signing.
No,
and
Tony's lottery winnings could.
Tony lottery winnings. Don't bring that up again. I'm still confused.
Maybe that's confusing.
We'll talk about it after. Wait for us to finish. Alison, Christian Eriksen is out of contract. Any desires?
Yes, well, I mean, Brentford did keep her tabs on him.
You want him to go back, do you?
And they thought they might get him.
They don't need him
now. I think they
thought
they might get him
a year
ago. And I think they'd find a good way of using him, actually.
Can I ask you another question as well? We talked about Wissa and Mbeumo and how brilliant they've been this season, both of them more than replacing Ivan Toney. Are we all in the stay where you are?
I'd love them to stay where they are, but it is interesting.
You wouldn't like them to challenge themselves with a team in Europe?
Well, I think they could qualify.
I mean
for
that with respect for Brentford, but they're not in Europe.
They came fairly close to qualifying for Europe. I think they could qualify for Europe.
Are they both good enough to play for a team in Europe, do you think?
Oh yeah, I'm huge fans of them. When you yeah. And there's the romantic in me wants them both to stay at Brentford, but then
what about
Brentford operate on making profit, and they'll probably let him go. And Mbeumo go, definitely, probably. What does that mean? It means nothing. It means I'm like, but
both things can be true.
Yeah,
right.
true. But on the other hand, look at what they did at Brentford when Ivan Toney left, and you thought, where's the goals going to come from? But they do it.
Was that you in your Scouse voice saying?
They've done that about 4 times. How?
That's
like
amazing.
someone's left. Ollie
Watkins
goal.
left. Yeah.
Andre Gray left. They got goals again from some. Just kept doing it.
So, any other transfers you'd like to see? I've got another
Nunes
category.
moving.
Which
And
one?
get Darwin.
Yeah.
And see if he can. A lot of goalkeepers might need protection.
Maybe he could
or
go to Sunderland
insurance.
as well. Hoyland and Darwin Nunes, front two.
Two up front.
At least they'd get some shots off because Nunez actually shoots. Hoyland, I don't know what he does.
Yeah,
James McAtee, I think he's going to be leaving Manchester City. A really good player.
Thanks for making this serious, by the way, Hamza. Just us three talking nonsense. You actually bringing some genuine contributions to the show.
This could be his sort of Cole Palmer
Interesting.
moment or season. So Palmer similarly went to the under-21 Euros, got the move to Chelsea, and then flourished the season afterwards. McAtee is, in all likelihood, heading to the under-21 Euros, but it's not completely confirmed yet because of the Club World Cup, and City may decide to take him there. But it looks like he'll be on his way afterwards, and it could just be an exciting move for him. Then there's also the big money one is at the moment for the Premier League is Wirtz as well. When I've watched him, he's been really, really exciting. I'm not entirely sure where he will play if he does sign for Liverpool. He might be on the left wing, he might be a false nine, he might be as the number 10. But there's lots of it hasn't happened very often that an English team has gone out and plucked someone from Bayern Munich's sort of grasp because Bayern were quite sure that they would get him. So I think that's very exciting to pull out maybe the best or the second best German attacking midfield talent, him and Musiala being the top two.
Yeah, Paul Joyce reporting that Florian Wirtz linked with a potentially £109 million move to Liverpool. Could be even more than that if the deal goes through. Speaking of spending a lot of money, I wanted to mention another piece by our pal Johnny Northcroft in the Sunday Times this week that was headlined, "Fans Beware! Half of transfers will be flops." Now, I'm not a kind of toxic kind of guy, so I'm not going to use flops or worst. But what were your most disappointing? Like your mum would say, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. What was your most disappointing transfers of last season? I've got a couple, and there were lots highlighted in Johnny's piece. Tony?
Well, I sort of mentioned João Felix. I mean, disaster for Chelsea. Absolute disaster. Just couldn't get going, been bought and sold and moved on and loaned out everywhere. He would be up there. I don't know. I thought Chiesa would play some sort of part at Liverpool, and he ended up literally a cameo.
You love Chiesa as well, don't you?
Yeah,
I remember when you joined, you were excited by him joining.
I was excited because without, obviously, I still didn't know how bad the injuries had affected him, and it clearly had. I think there's quite a lot of players that, you go around, you look at West Ham, you might go, Fulkrug has been disappointing, but then he's had loads of injuries. Do you include injuries in being a flop? Because sometimes it's just very unfortunate.
I think injuries is a big part of some of them when they start with an injury, which I think Fulkrug did as well. He started the season with an injury for quite a while.
I'll tell you one I'd add into there has really been disappointing. His career as a young man has gone very, very much backwards. Is Evan Ferguson. He went to loan, to West Ham. I saw him in the first game he played, and he looked sharp in that. I haven't seen him again. Yeah. Didn't look like getting a goal for West Ham. He's a young man. He's got a chance of turning his career around. Yeah. Really disappointing. Remember, Hertzler's let him go. He's obviously given the backing for he's not going to make my group. Danny Welbeck's keeping him out of the team. Yeah. So. Any other disappointing transfers that happened last season? Players that you were expecting to shine but
Dominic
didn't?
Solanke, actually, if I'm being completely honest.
Really?
I really like him, and I interviewed him.
Liverpool.
And
yeah.
There was a Liverpool connection. But
let
me explain. Let me explain. The core of the interview I did with him was about how he, the players at Bournemouth struggled to understand the Andoni Iraola philosophy to begin with. So there was a few weeks of just staring at a whiteboard and thinking, I don't know what he's talking about. But they worked at it, and he described that breakthrough moment when he understood his role and the pressing he would have to do, and particularly the moments when he would have to press. And you can picture it, can't you? You're sat watching the arrows on a board and thinking, I've not done this before. But they managed to pull it together, and he was at the heart of some very, very good performances for Bournemouth. And so he goes for big money to Spurs, and I didn't begrudge him the move at all. But you kind of think this is a player who's proven he can adapt to a different managerial style, and he looked to me, he looked lost the whole time he was playing in Spurs. When Spurs were playing well, he looked lost, and when they were playing badly, he looked a little bit lost.
I thought he played quite well for them when he played badly.
I thought he did play okay, but I found myself clinging to the good things that happened in a match he was in, and thinking, yeah, he did okay there. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. Oh, he saved them there, and he didn't. To me, he just didn't. He wasn't allowed to, or he wasn't able to flourish into that next level. This should be the peak level of his career. This should be the moment when he announces himself as a difficult striker to play against, someone who regularly gets goals. And he was getting the occasional moments in matches, and it didn't work. And I felt that was sort of symptomatic of how Spurs were dysfunctional, and how probably I don't know if players do this, but if he was to honestly, rewind, would he have still done it?
Hamza?
I don't know if I was. I don't know if you
weren't disappointed by anyone. That's all right.
No, as in some you just knew were going to be disappointments. It's not like you're being let down. As in you just knew they weren't going to be successful. I remember when United signed Manuel Ugarte. They got him in as their number 6 to try and to be their number 6 to pass forwards, and that's just not what he does. And it was like...
That's why PSG let him go, because he didn't pass forward.
Yeah, but God forbid you write about this and Manchester United fans tell you what they think. No, of course, no, he's meant to... And if you want, listeners, if you want, read my Manuel Ugarte piece, read all the comments beneath it, right, and see if you should leave things to the professionals or, as a fan, come in and say, oh, you got that wrong. But...
I can dish out Hamza's email address for this part of the show, rather than my own. No.
Go for it. Other disappointment. I don't know why Arsenal signed Mikel Merino. He played really well up front, really did, but he didn't add what they needed in midfield, which was progression.
I think you look back on Arsenal season, and I've got Calafiori as well, who I loved. I loved as a player. Well. Loved at the Euros. Was like, oh gosh, he's so good looking as well. His long hair, his hairbands, bringing back the hairband.
But probably just didn't move them forward.
No, exactly. And you're just like, ugh. And then as an Arsenal fan, you're thinking, well, if we'd taken the Calafiori money and the Merino money, we'd gone and signed a striker, maybe we'd have won the league. Anyway,
can I give one outstanding candidate? Not any of us have mentioned, because he's not really been spoken about for about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah,
Timo Werner. Timo Werner at Tottenham.
Yeah. Picked up a Europa League winners medal.
I think I last saw him against Morecambe in the cup or something like that. Remember thinking that was it.
Yeah.
175,000 a week.
Yeah, very quick one as well from Pedro Neto as well to Chelsea as well.
Oh,
Liam.
I would disagree.
Really?
Yeah. I think he's given everything. I think he's given everything.
I'm disappointed that he's there. It's a different type of disappointment.
Okay.
I'm disappointed he's there.
Yeah,
because I remember they signed. I was like, oh, bore off. What are you going to Chelsea for? Anyway,
Guido Rodriguez. That was a bad move.
Yeah,
at West Ham.
Yeah,
they tried to go man to man. This guy was just old. not old, but just a bit too old to move to the Premier League. And
yes, absolutely. A final award. The Oliver. You ready for this? The Oliver Glasner Award for the team we are already excited about seeing next season. Get it? Remember? Because last season, Palace finished really well. Yeah. Bit of a stretch. Are we running out of topics at the end of the season? Who knows? But we're going with it anyway. Alison, the team you're already excited about seeing next season. And please don't be Liverpool.
Brentford.
Your other Liverpool.
No. Well, are they? Is that what you think?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's why I'm excited.
Yes.
So I'm in a loop I can't break out of now.
Okay, fine. Just round and round we go.
Come on. I know. I bring them up, but I don't know why the whole world just doesn't fall over when they see Brentford.
I think everyone does love Brentford.
They're astonishing. What they do on the budget that they have.
So you're excited, even if they lose Mbeumo. And
it's interesting to see how, as we've discussed, they keep managing to find someone to score the goals.
Tony,
I'm not Liverpool, obviously.
No. You can do what you want.
Oh, okay.
Just don't mention the lottery again.
I'm going to go Everton.
Everton, great shout. Me too.
I think there's a lot going on there. Obviously, the stadium is a big factor.
Moyes back.
The end of this season. I mean, he didn't just keep them up. He kept them up by a country mile.
Yeah.
And I think there was quite a number of players that would be going out, but they were getting ones in.
Yeah.
I think Evertonians will be more excited about this Everton and not looking at a relegation battle next year.
Yeah. Hamza?
Villa. I thought when you think about their matches against PSG, they're fantastic. They're in the Europa League next season, which is Emery's sort of expert sort of competition. It'll be a bit difficult because I think they have to move a few players on and bring a few new guys in. But I think you should just hopefully see some progress. And what we've already seen is a very good team. So they'll become an even better team. Yes, nothing too complex. I just think I'll be excited to watch them.
And Oliver Glasner and Crystal Palace in Europe, absolutely mad for it. Cannot wait for all my Crystal Palace pals as well to have their wonderful trips abroad.
No promoted team. None of us are mentioned.
No, we don't.
I'm excited for Sunderland to be back. Me and Gregor discussed that on the EFL show. I think Sunderland back in the Premier League could be really fun. Sunderland, Newcastle, that derby back in the Premier League. Sunderland fans desperate to put one over on Newcastle while they're flaunting it about in the Champions League next season. I'm excited about Sunderland.
It is going to be difficult for all three, though.
It will be very difficult for all three. But just whisper it and then I know. We're excited. Anyway, Tony Cascarino and Hamza Khalid, Alison Rudd, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you too for listening. We're going to keep podcasting. We'll be back on Thursday to discuss England in the internationals. We'll see you then.